Alright, let me roll the intro as we do. And now, live from Dogleg Brewery in Fort Worth, Texas, it's time for You Can't Brew That on Television. Now here are your hosts, Brewmeisters Kyle and the Reverend Ryan Bono. Hey guys.
How are you doing, Rich? How you doing, world?
Oh, fantastical. Hi, Internets.
Hello, Internet, and welcome to the second episode
The Deuce.
Can't Brew That Television. I am the Reverend Bono Ryan. Kyle LaPointe here. We're ready to taste some beer and talk about beer, and I don't know, but I'm ready to get started.
Hey, we're going to do it. Let's do it right now. Tonight we're going to be drinking Southern Star Pine Belt Pale Ale. We'll go ahead and run an intro about Pale Ale while we're trying to open this and let it do its thing.
We actually have a studio audience here this evening.
American Pale Ale, Style 10A of the BJCP. Moderate to strong hop aroma and flavor from dry hopping or late kettle additions of American hop varieties. A citrusy hop character is very common but not required. Low to moderate maltiness supports the hop presentation and may optionally show small amounts of specialty malt character. Bready, toasty, or biscuity. Fruity esters vary from moderate to none. Dry hopping, if used, may add grassy notes, although this character should not be excessive. Moderate to high hop bitterness with a medium to dry finish. Hop flavor and bitterness often linger. Color is pale golden to deep amber. Moderately large white to off-white head with good retention. Generally quite clear, although dry hopping can cause haze. Medium light to medium body. Carbonation moderate to high. Overall smooth finish without astringency often associated with high hopping rates.
All right.
Thank you very much for that wonderful description.
Thank you, Sheena. Appreciate that. This is basically a pale ale, so what we're looking for here is something that has a little bit of hop character to it. It's going to have some caramel sometimes. It's going to have a malt backbone. It's going to have something there that's not weak. It's not just hop water, hop tea that you're drinking. You're going to have something that has character, has some balance, but overall it leans towards the hoppy side.
I want to call everyone's attention to the color of this beer. This, when you read pale ale, when you hear that something is a pale ale, you're not typically thinking of this beautiful copper type of hue that this thing has to it. And really, pale ale has a pretty wide variety of color variation, and this, I think this is about as dark as a pale ale is going to get, but they're not all golden. They don't all look like Budweiser or Michelob. And in fact, is this beer or the brewery?
That's their can.
The can says on the side, clarity is overrated. And they clearly are not very big on clarity. This has a nice haze to it.
And likely it was dry hopped. Dry hopping, sometimes you can't get some of the particles left over from the hops out of the beer, so they just didn't try. But this is a very tasty beer.
There's some definitely caramel character in there. I really like caramelized. Yeah, a lot of caramelized grains in your beer.
And caramel's normally more of an amber character for an amber ale, but it blends well with the piney hops in this. It's a good beer, good representation for this style.
I'm really enjoying it, actually. It's got a nice hop bitterness to it without being over the top. You know, it doesn't quite reach the realm of IPA.
You catch a little bit of the citrus in there too. American hops tend to be piney and or citrusy, and you catch some of the citrus way in the back once it's gone through. I catch that. All right. Moving on, new big movie that's just come out into the world of beer here is called Beer Wars. Something we would like everybody to check out. It's interesting. It's definitely a little propaganda-y type movie about craft brewing as opposed to mega breweries. But it's very interesting.
It's a documentary, and as most documentaries go, it has a very decided slant to it. But it's very interesting, and you learn an awful lot of just about a lot of the challenges that craft brewers are facing, and you also gain some insight on how craft brewers are facing those challenges together.
It's a tight-knit community, so yeah.
I thought this was a cool little flick. I saw this, or I actually heard about this just on one of the local radio stations was covering it when it came out last week, I think it was. And it's just a little indie film. The lady who produced it, I guess she used to be the kind of like one of the launch partners of Mike's Hard Lemonade, so she's been in the whole beer marketing bit for a while. But it looked good, and I got to watch it last night, and I thought it was pretty interesting, so I thought we'd put it out there.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. Everybody watch that. Maybe down the road we'll have a little more in-depth discussion about brewing industry in general and some of the hazards, pitfalls, problems, and good things about starting breweries.
A couple of neat quotes. We each took something different away from it when watching the movie. And what I took away from it was they had an interview with the brewmaster of Stone, which is a big brewery out in Southern California, and he was talking about the nature of competition among craft brewers, and he said that any brewery that raises the bar, that raises the level for craft beer is somebody that he wants to cooperate with, somebody that he's okay with. And anybody putting out cheap beer, anybody putting out just something cheap that they can make a buck off of, that's who he considers to be the competition. And I thought that was really neat because that's kind of the same philosophy that we have here at Dogleg.
Yeah.
And Kyle took something different from it.
Yeah, I was just saying it was kind of, I think a lot of this was focused on how beer in general had been marketed over the years to dwindle down how many breweries there were to what there were. There were less than a beer estate in the continental United States in the mid-'70s, and now it's grown to over 1,500, I believe, is where the number's at right now, breweries. And one thing that they were talking about, and I believe it was Jim Cope, the brewer of Boston Brewing Company, Sam Adams, talked about how we've been told our whole life what beer is supposed to be tasting like by the Budweisers and the Coors and the Miller Lights, and that's their advertising campaign so that we know beer tastes like their product. But he said it's kind of like gleaming what food is supposed to taste like by talking to McDonald's. Yeah, they sell more food to more people than anybody, but is that really what food is supposed to taste like? It's interesting. Baz thinks yes, that is what food is supposed to taste like.
Studio, we have some nods from the studio audience, everyone.
All right. Well, again, we're going to move on to the Blue Bonnet. It's coming up. We've got final chance to do some entrants. I know the Cap and Hair is doing a tasting event today, or a calibration as they're calling it, although misspelled. I didn't know if he was talking about collaboration or calibration for a while, but that's our local.
Shout out to the Cap and Hair, who may or may not be watching this right now while they're doing their tasting. Everyone who's local, everyone who's in the Dallas-Fort Worth area or can get to the Dallas-Fort Worth area by the end of March, this is a highly recommended event. It's extraordinary. Home brewing is by nature so creative and so amazing, and the people that show up bring some incredible beers you could never even dream of. And there's mead there, and I brought some friends last year who'd never tried mead before, and they were just absolutely addicted.
Yeah, they thanked Bono quite immensely for the headache they had the next day.
They loved that headache.
Yeah, mead is well known for its hangovers. Sorry for the sidetrack in there. But yeah, the Cap and Hair and the other local brew clubs around here, the Cobb and North Texas Home Brewers, that's just to mention the Dallas-Fort Worth Brewers. It's very nice to have a membership with a club like that. Wherever you're at, whatever you can do, if you're interested in home brewing, join a club. There's so many little things that you get from that camaraderie, and like they're doing tonight. They're going on there and they're tasting each other's beers, and they're saying there's three styles. You know, you've got an American ale and you've got an amber ale. You brewed an American, and it tasted a little bit more like an amber. For some reason, the caramels came out more, and it was really, really caramely, and it's a good beer. You enter it as an American, and it's not going to win, but you enter it as an amber, and it's going to win. So they're helping each other out. and it's very nice.
And just like in the world of craft brewing and in the world of home brewing, we're in this together. You know, we're all just trying to make good beer and enjoy each other's beer. And so there's so much camaraderie and people helping each other out so much when you're doing these home brew clubs. It really is a neat atmosphere.
So if you can turn them in by this Thursday to the local organizations, then any of the Foremans or the Fort Worth Homebrew, which is down there in South Fort Worth,
headquarters over in Richardson,
and they're turn them into any of those places, and $7 an entry, I believe, and get your beer entered and judged. And the worst case, you have some ranked, nationally recognized judges going through there and saying, I like your beer or I don't like your beer, and this is how you make it better.
Absolutely. So one of the things we're going to try to do in this show is every week we're going to take a question from the viewing audience, and we had to take questions that we'd been emailed from family members for the first week, but now we're actually getting questions from the studio audience. So just before we jump into this, if you're a home brewer, an aspiring home brewer, I see my cousin David is listening in tonight, and I know that we're going to be helping him get off the ground here pretty quick. So any questions at all, just feel free to email them in. And I mean, we don't know all the answers to everything, but we know the guys who do. So,
and we know the guys who know those little trivia things, like Chris, who's just saying to everybody that anything brewed in Texas, that's sold in Texas, that is over 5% has to be called an ale. So a Doppelbock or something that is a lager yeast that is fermented with cold fermentation, it has to be called an ale, despite the fact that it's not an ale.
Just one of those neat little things about living in Texas. Mm-hmm. They're so friendly to beer here, everyone. So friendly.
Well, one thing we're going to bring up is we're going to try to do a tip, a little helpful hint, something from our experience or something from somebody else's experience. This week, we're working on temperature regulator. Basically, when you have a fridge that you want to turn into something that stores beer, or something that a freezer maybe that you want to turn into a refrigerator, you can put a temperature regulator on it. And what these do is they cap the top temperature at which that refrigerator will get to. Sounds great in Texas, right?
Absolutely.
We've got a lot of hot weather, and so in Texas we're going, okay, we just got to make sure we keep it under a certain amount. Well, this season, with global warming impacting us the way it has, it's been really cold, and we've had some experience with we're using this kegerator this keezer that we've got as a fermentation chamber. So we've got it temperature regulated at the top end, but it got so cold that our ale yeast was having trouble bubbling. It was really working too little because it was only about 45 or 50 degrees in that freezer. Mono came up with a good idea, worked out really well for us.
So we were trying to figure this out one night. How do we keep the fridge warm? How do we keep it warm? And we were waiting on a piece of equipment called a two-way temperature controller, which we would have connected to a heating element within the refrigerator, that whenever the temperature got too low, it would kick in the heating element, and then whenever temperature got too high, it would keep kicking the cooling element. But this is an expensive piece of equipment. I mean, and then you have to rig that into a heating element. So I just dug into my storage shed and busted out a space heater that has an adjustable thermostat on it. And so we went ahead and used that instead of a two-way temperature controller, because really we only needed something to kick in when it gets too cold.
And it didn't need to kick in very often.
Didn't need to kick in very often.
So that's what we did. We
nice cheap fix.
We used a $50 temperature regulator for the top end and turned our freezer into a refrigerator, and then we stuck a heating element essentially with our space heater inside the now modified into a freezer to keep it from getting too cold. Just wanted to watch that little temperature, or the little electrical gauge on our house spin. But no, that didn't happen. Actually, it works out really well. We calibrated it inside. The way we did that was we took it's got a little temperature gauge on it, and it just, whether it's really accurate or not, we'll never know. But we figure we're within about 5 to 10 degrees. Maybe not as clean as some people would really want for their fermentation. They like to get it down to a degree or 2 or 3 degrees, but it's good enough for us. You can make a fine beer with having a 5 to 10 degree temperature swing.
And Chris writes in from the hot and steamy Everglades, Chris, I don't think you're going to need anything to keep your beer from getting too cold. So just go ahead and don't worry about the space heater.
Keep a space heater around. That's all I'm saying. Keep a space heater around.
Yeah, that's what we were all saying last year.
Yeah.
Times change.
We did not think we would ever need anything other than a top-end temperature regulator, and now I've got a dual stage on the order, so, it's just how it works sometimes. But this is just one of those things that you do with brewing that you kind of improvise. We needed that done that night, and Bono, I talked to him, and he said, I'll be right over the space heater. Took care of the problem.
It was immediately, the beer was bubbling away within hours. I mean, it worked wonders.
Did its thing. We got.
It helps to have a little bit of a MacGyver element to your home brewing operation. Lots of room for creativity, huh?
There is a lot of room for creativity. It all depends on how you want to do it. Some people like to spend money and just buy the best of the best. Some people like to cheap out as much as they can, go to the neighbor's trash can and see what they can pull out of there.
And I think this is a big part of the reason that the hobby attracts engineers the way it does. Both of us are engineers. I'd say, a third to a half of the people we meet at a brewing event, all engineers.
Engineering background, math background, we can finally use our...
Yeah, we learned a whole bunch of useless stuff, like hydrodynamics. We've got the architect in the audience giving us a thumbs down right now.
Because he still hasn't used anything. He's learned in college.
He uses a lot of crayons, though.
Highlights magazine.
I'm actually up to Chris McCullough.
Oh, God.
I see those watercolors in Bristol, and they suck.
Right. So we'll go on to a Q&A section.
Time for some Q&A?
I introed way too early, apparently. Sorry about that.
What was that, Rich?
No, I was just agreeing with you guys. Time for some Q&A? It's no problem, Bono. It's okay to set them up early. You don't want to surprise people. You got to ease them into this webcasting thing. No shock value.
Right.
We'd like to open it up if anybody has any questions out here, or if anybody has any questions in the chat room, let us know. Otherwise, we do have something that was asked to us earlier in the week that we can answer. But I guess we'll roll with that for now. Rich, do you mind reading that question for us?
Right. Forgot that program note. Anyway, James Wright in Sacramento, California, thank you for your question. He writes, what is the best way to ship beers without them breaking in transit?
And that's a common problem, especially in
very common problem. And actually, Matt in High Point, you might want to listen up, because I know you said you're going to be shipping us some beer here pretty soon. So after we go through this segment, I expect my beer by the end of the week.
That's right. The main basic things on it, you want to protect the beer. That's first and foremost. The second thing you want to do is protect in case you didn't protect the beer. And the third thing that you want to do is be sure not to tell anybody it's beer. Bottom line is, we don't know all the rules. We don't know all the lines, all the laws that are set up across different state lines, and they vary.
And because laws vary so much from state to state, the overwhelming majority of your shipping companies, they're not going to ship it if they know that it's alcohol, just because they know that the laws vary from state to state. So rather than keep up with the laws, they're not going to ship it.
Faz, do you have a question?
We have a question from the studio audience.
Comment on that.
Okay.
After someone in Cleveland, Ohio lost a bet to me on a Mavs-Cavs game, they shipped me a case of Flying Doggy style. Nice.
Okay.
There is a company in Colorado that will ship beer.
Oh yeah, there are definitely companies.
I believe they even had a little fact link on their website that told you how they do it.
Yeah, and we've shipped beers, or a lot of companies that will ship beers. The main thing is that, like Bono was saying, that the big companies out there, the UPSs and the FedExes,
Actually, I think FedEx does liquids.
they do liquids, but not alcoholic.
Yeah, you don't want to tell them that it's alcohol.
You don't have to declare it as alcohol.
FedEx will do pretty good.
People claim they'll write marinade on it, or chili flavoring or something along that line, because hey, it is, right? They're not lying, and they'll do those kind of deals. But I guess back to expand on the first and foremost thing that you do, bubble wrap. Get you some bubble wrap. You can use some towels or anything else like that, but bubble wrap's disposable. You don't have to get it returned.
Packing peanuts are nice. Those always go a long way.
And then when you're done with everything, individually pack it in some sort of a garbage bag. Whether you do every one in its own garbage bag or whether you do the whole thing in a garbage bag, I think it's overkill to do every one. But yeah, use a garbage bag around them. Personal experience shipping back from Belgium when Megan and I were there this last year. We expected to be able to find a shipping store over there a lot easier than we did, and ends up we were stuck with what we had, which was a couple of boxes and beers wrapped in paper. And we took these boxes that weighed about 45 pounds apiece, and we mixed them up and put our socks around there and undershirts and everything else we could get around there, and changed that over and put them back in the box to where they were tight. Shipped just fine. We put fragile glass stickers on them. Everybody at the airports were very nice. And when we got home, we'd only lost one bottle, and that was because when we hit customs, they had to send your bag down the chute unattended, or bag, or in this case, box of beers. And so when it fell down the chute onto the luggage rack, it decided to hit the bottom and compress and break the one in the middle. But typically, you're not shipping 24 beers per box either. That was quite overboard. Shipping 50 pounds worth of beer can get expensive.
So you always want to get a Budweiser and kind of put that in the middle of your pack, just as a shock absorber.
That's right. COD. Yeah, we could definitely ship COD. All right. And so through the American postal system, it is illegal to ship beer or alcohol. It can, because it violates some sort of federal law that I don't know. So the United States Postal Service will not do it.
So bottom line, don't tell them.
It says here that's a leftover law from Prohibition.
I believe that's where it's some leftover deal, just like we got a lot of really fun laws from that era.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's they were really good at legislating back then.
Interestingly enough, home brewing was still until what, the 60s or 70s.
It was into the 70s.
As a result of Prohibition, it was just one of those things that just never got turned around.
Pretty interesting thing that Sam Castiglione, the head brewer there at Dogfish Head, was saying in his Beer Wars movie was that he didn't know the laws when he started his brew pub, basically a restaurant in brewing, and 3 days before he ended up starting his brewery, he was able to get the laws changed. He basically went to the Senate and ramrodded his own legislation through there, allowing him to start his own brewery. So those kind of things are very changeable.
Were it so easy.
Interestingly enough, my great-grandmother was brewing beer in her basement during Prohibition.
So, was there a question back there?
Just a comment. There's also called state laws about it.
Yes.
Utah in particular.
Yeah.
Utah is very stingy about
Baz
alcohol.
was mentioning that there's a lot of state laws.
You can think back to the creation of political order.
Yeah.
Ha! Which I actually.
So state laws definitely impact, and they definitely change. And the shipping of actual commercial beers there are different laws that apply to that than would apply to home fermented beers. And you're talking about commercial law and alcohol law and intrastate commerce law. It's just so many things apply that rather than going into things in depth, it's just kind of it's better to don't ask, don't tell. Or there's a few states out there that I don't recommend shipping to, and Utah is definitely one of them. I would steer clear of shipping there if you can.
Communist China.
Yeah.
Want to stay away from them?
Where should our fans send their emails if they have a question?
If you have questions for the Dogleg crew, you can send your email to webcast@doglegbrewery.com. We've also got a Facebook fan page that's up and a popular hotspot for the Dogleg fan base. It's just Dogleg Brewery if you search them there. And if you're a Twitter person, you can follow @Dogleg Brewery. I'll take that graphic out because I effed it up. But anyway, those are some easy ways to get a hold of you guys.
We do have a few bits of news of local interest.
Yeah,
and if we get a heavy following in any one particular city or region across the nation, I'm looking at you, High Point. We will go ahead and post news from your region. But the Flying Saucer right here in downtown Fort Worth is having a tasting tomorrow around 6 p.m.
In the Half-Acre Hall.
In the Half-Acre Hall upstairs. Our friend Jen, the bartender, is going to be taking care of that.
Actually, I believe it's 5 a.m.
5 p.m. Thank you very much.
Right? 5 a.m.
5 a.m.
Oh, 5 p.m.
5 p.m.
He only gave me 5. I thought it was military time.
You were tasting at 5 p.m. We could be trespassing.
we could be trespassing. And also, if you go to the Gingerman tomorrow, around 6 o'clock, they're going to be tapping a keg of Bucking Bach, which is a very, very heavily decorated beer from the Roar Brewery here in downtown Fort Worth. They've won an awful lot of medals with that beer, and they're going to be tapping that keg tomorrow at the Gingerman at 6.
Very nice to have Roar beer around here. Once again, they've had some problems with their sunroof. They didn't have a sunroof before, and now they do. And so the snow has done its damage on there and done a lot of damage to the equipment, and it may be a little while before they're able to brew. We just want to support them in every way we can. Buy their beer.
They're still doing tours and tastings, though, so if you're in the Fort Worth area, go ahead and pay them a visit.
And Southern Star, I'm quite impressed with this. I think it's a very nice beer. You should have the rest of that.
And we're at the brewery.
I enjoy this one in the can. I got it off the tap down here this weekend, and
yeah,
it was good. But I got home with the cans, and I can't get enough of them, as evidenced by my producing quality this week. But no, it's good stuff.
Cans are something that kind of drew a little ire for a while because they didn't know how to properly seal the insides of the cans to stop the aluminum from leaching flavor in there. These days, they cover it, and it doesn't leach nearly as much, so you are actually able to taste the.
Kyle, I'm sorry. Did you want to stop for a second and get that call? It's only a national broadcast, man. We can slow down if you want. No, yeah, that's what I thought too about cans. Is always like, you want to drink out of a can, but apparently the technology has changed, and I was too drunk to notice.
Yeah, and so cans are a very good way to do it. They don't allow light in. Light is the enemy to all beer. If what happens are the little oil glands of the hop plant are released into beer. Oh, you're gonna call me now? He's proud of his ringtone. Call me now, Faz. You can listen to your ringtone.
I'm not even texting you.
No, call me, and you can listen to your ringtone. So anyway, cans stop all the light from hitting what's called lupulin, which is the oil glands of the hop plant, and what it'll do is it'll burst them. And when you get the burst flavor, you get the Corona effect, i.e. skunkiness, and it's quite terrible. But
I like to call it Dos Equis effect.
yeah,
I thought the Corona effect was just the best.
it's pretty
Not
close.
as good as revenge.
But yeah, we're happy with this. They have another beer, the Buried Hatchet Stout, that I very much enjoyed. Very roasty beer. Some people they may have thought it went a little towards the edge of the style guide, and I'm happy with it. I really like that. They pushed the edges, and it's a very flavorful beer. This coming up this next month in March, I noticed on their website this is their 2nd year anniversary coming up on March 27th. So, everybody raise a glass to Southern Star. Hope they keep producing some more beers down there in Conroe, Texas. which is just a little suburb north of Houston.
But before we sign off, one thing we did forget to mention is that you may or may not have noticed we haven't selected a beer for next week. And so what we're really counting on is viewer suggestions. If you have a beer that you really want to see us taste, if you have a brewery that you really want to see us get the word out about, send us a text, send us an email. Everybody watching knows how to get in touch with us. And let us know what you want to see tasted in an upcoming episode. So until then,
there's a suggestion right there. It may put us all on our pants.
Oh, the Yeti. Oh, it's in. Well, wonderful. I'm okay with it.
It's all right. We'll do the Yeti.
I'm okay with the Yeti. Until then, we are not professionals, so please
try this at home.
Good show, guys. Looks good.
We're going to play Bass's song here. For some reason, it didn't.
Wow, the dogs were good. They were quiet the whole episode until the credits.
I think Oregon would be a nice road show. That's your David, Colt 45, I'm not so sure about. Maybe Mad Dog 2020.
It's from, we can throw Hibachi.
That's alright.
Macaroon?
Macaroon?
Yeah, that's
I'd like a macaroon.